If you'd like online business explained to you in a way that you can actually understand, go to latenightim.com/explain. It's completely free, and I made it just for you. Now, how about an episode? Episode 92.
Late Night Internet Marketing.
This week, on this special Thanksgiving Day edition of the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast, we have John Lee Dumas. I waited months for this interview. You got to schedule him way in advance. All this and more on the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast.
The Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast.
You've been working for somebody else, but you want a business to run yourself. You want to know how to start and where to begin. Can you get out your comfort zone, my friend? Yes, you can do it right when it's late at night. At the end of the day, your dreams burning inside. So keep it up and you will find that you're building your business one night at a time.
And now, broadcasting late at night from a little studio in the big state of Texas, your host, Mark Mason.
Hey guys, so today is Thanksgiving Day when this episode goes live. I hope that you and yours are having an absolutely fantastic Thanksgiving. If you're not in the United States and say you're in a country that celebrates Thanksgiving in another time like Canada, or you've got another holiday that's equivalent to Thanksgiving where you just sit around and count all the stuff that you're just really thankful for. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I hope you take time to think about all the things that are in your business that you're thankful for, or the things that are around you. That can be very motivating, really help you get going. So I wanted to tell you, I've got this great interview for you today from John Lee Dumas. Before we get into that, I also want to tell you, we're making big plans here at Late Night Internet Marketing for 2016. I'm trying to make it the best year ever for the podcast. And I'm planning to use a product that I've used before to help me get going into 2016 by Michael Hyatt called Best Year Ever. It's a really good goal-setting product. If you want to learn about marketing, one of the things you can do is follow Michael Hyatt. And Michael uses a version of what we call the product launch formula in the internet marketing industry, where he releases really, really valuable content prior to the launch of a product. He does this every year, and he just put out a PDF that I really think you should download and read. You can get it at latenightim.com or latenightinternet.marketing.com/Hyatt PDF. That's HYATT PDF. All one word, all lowercase, Hyatt PDF. And if you sign up and get this PDF, what you're going to get is this sort of amazing collection of these 30 high achievers that share their top strategies for achievement. This is really good going into the new year. Maybe there's a thing or two you can pick out of there. I'm kind of blown away by the access that Michael Hyatt has to people and kind of the way he's able to synthesize information. I think this PDF is worth your time downloading. Again, that's latenightim.com/Hyatt PDF. Now, just so you know, I mean, this is an affiliate marketing, internet marketing kind of show. Michael's eventually going to sell this product called Best Year Ever sometime in December. And people who download this PDF, if they subsequently buy the product, the commission for that sale is going to go to that person. So if you use my link to download this PDF, I'll end up getting a commission. So that's how affiliate marketing works. One of the cool things about Michael is he actually trains his affiliates, people that sell his products, to be completely transparent about that fact. Now, I would do that anyway. You guys know that's how I roll. I only promote products that I actually have used in the past and really enjoy. But for this Hyatt thing, I'm not even talking about the product yet. We'll probably talk about that in subsequent episodes because I'm actually going to use it this year. But I would strongly encourage that you go to latenightim.com/Hyatt PDF and just grab this PDF. It won't cost you anything, and I think you'll like it. Okay, so that gets us to the John Lee Dumas interview. Now, for those of you that don't know the John Lee Dumas story, John is just a guy, JLD, we call him. He's sort of a famous guy now, hundreds of thousands of dollars a month at Entrepreneur on Fire now, a huge podcast, a podcasting membership site, all kinds of amazing success. But this came from a guy who started from zero. I mean, it wasn't like he was some special guy with special talents. He was a guy who started out saying, I want to figure out how to make a living running an online business. A lot like a lot of you. That's why I love this interview for you guys, because John was just a regular guy before he was Superman. And, I think, it's somebody you can relate to. He's still, very normal, very approachable, super nice guy. Now he's incredibly successful, but it wasn't always that way. And I think it's important for you to see these kind of examples in that context so that you can understand that you can have that kind of success too. So without further ado, let's get into it with JLD, John Lee Dumas from EntrepreneurOnFire.com.
Hey, don't touch that dial. It's time for another fantastic guest on the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have the fire-breathing John Lee Dumas on the mic. John, how is it going, my brother?
Mark Mason, I am here. I am prepared to ignite.
I am so excited to have you here because, as you know, a lot of my listeners are trying to get started online, and your story is kind of amazing. But before we get into your story, I want to do a little something with you here. I want to thank you. This is an international show, but I want to thank you for your service to the United States. When you were driving tanks and doing all that cool stuff. Thank you very much, man.
Well, Mark, I truly appreciate your appreciation. And true story, I served right next to soldiers from Poland, from England, from Australia, and many other amazing countries while I was deployed in Iraq. So it was an international effort as well. Also many Iraqi soldiers as well that were, fighting for the good side. So thank you for your appreciation. And I know a lot of international listeners know people that were deployed to Iraq as well. And so thank you for your country's service.
Well, hey, listen, my listeners are interested in really trying to get things going. A lot of people that listen to my show are working their business in the margins. They're just really trying to get started. You, on the other hand, have interviewed over 1,000, I think 1,100 and something now.
You were number 1165, brother.
Oh, yeah. I was on 1165. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. That'll be going live, I guess, sometime in December. Yeah. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes. My question to you is, based on all of these people that you've talked to, I mean, you're one of the few people in the world probably that's actually recently talked to more than 1,000 entrepreneurs. That's kind of a powerful thing. I mean, even a newscaster or someone who's in, I can't think of anyone else in the world really who's had so much contact with so many different entrepreneurs. Is it still possible, starting from zero, to have an idea and be successful in business right now?
More so now than ever. And it keeps getting more possible every single day from my vantage point. I mean, if you are willing to not just have an idea, but to have an idea that is niche, that is special, that is unique, then you are going to be able to create and grow and down the road monetize that audience in a really powerful way. We talked a little bit about on my show, and you said these words, Mark. You only need 100 people. You only need to really help 100 people to solve 100 people's problems. And that's a 6-figure a year business, period, right there. I mean, guys, it's at your fingertips. It's just finding a problem, number one, that inspires you, that you have some value to give, or that you're going to acquire value. I didn't have any value to give when I first started, but I acquired it through these interviews. So that came with time. So that inspires you, that excites you, that you have value to give or are soon going to acquire to give. And then you just put the nose to the grindstone and work hard to serve those people. Boom, you have a business.
Now, you talk about putting your nose to the grindstone. And again, you've talked to these 1,100 people. What are the behaviors that you observe from, when you talk to these people, what can you say about them that they have in common that helps make them successful?
So this is interesting because this is actually turned into what is now my current passion project that I've been working on in all of 2015. And I'm so excited about, because after interviewing now over 1,165, you are the most recent person that I interviewed, Mark. So that's my exact number right now. I've seen the one commonality that all of these entrepreneurs have in common. They know how to set and accomplish a goal. And it's not, they are setting and accomplishing tons of goals in all these different areas. No, they know how to set and accomplish a goal, a singular goal. And it was so obvious to me that, the beginning of 2015, I was at like 700 or 800 interviews at that point, and it just kept coming up over and over again so much. And I'm like, it is incredible that this is the one commonality. I really can't name another thing that's so common as this one thing of setting and accomplishing a goal. And that is exactly why I've created my passion project, which is now the Freedom Journal, which we can talk about later for sure. But it's because of this one commonality of having to learn how to set not just any goal, but a SMART goal, and then accomplish that goal in a timely fashion. That's what sets my guests apart from many of my listeners, Mark, who haven't accomplished or achieved similar success.
Now, can you tell me or tell our listeners an example maybe from the past of how that's manifested for you? Because I know that's something that you're good at as well. And I know your story very well, but maybe you have a particular example where you set a goal like that was business related, maybe that you weren't even sure you could reach and made it happen.
Yeah, totally. And, I like to even go back to the beginning for me, which is the launch of EO Fire. Because Mark, when I started, I had no experience on a microphone. I had no interviewing experience. I had no connections in the industry. I had come from the military, from corporate finance. I had nothing. This was my first swing of the bat in the world of entrepreneurship. But I knew that I wanted to create this 7-day-a-week show. I had my quote unquote aha moment, and I saw that was something that I wanted to create. So I set out to create it. So what I did, and I learned a lot of these things from the military and other ventures in my life, because I was 32 years old when I launched EO Fire, is I sat down and I set a SMART goal. Now, I love acronyms, and people that listen to my show know I have my share of acronyms, but this one's key. It's a specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound goal. So it has to really fit all of those specifics, because if it doesn't, then you're not going to be able to actually achieve that goal in that critical time-bound fashion that makes sense for you and your business. So if you sit down first and create a SMART goal, that's key. So for me, that was EO Fire. I was being specific. Hey, this is going to be a 7-day-a-week show. Now measurable. Okay, I'm going to actually be measuring what success looks like if I achieve this goal. I want to achieve 100,000 listens per month. That is my big goal down the road. Now, is it attainable? Well, I talked to people like Cliff Ravenscraft, who mentored me, and Jamie Tardy, who mentored me, and they said, yes, this is an attainable goal if you knock it out of the park. Now, is it relevant? It's very relevant to me because I want to be a podcast host. So this was a totally relevant goal. And was it time bound? Yes, I gave myself 1 year to achieve this goal. 1 year to get those 100,000 listens on my 7-day-a-week podcast. So I was very specific. I was very smart with setting that goal. And then I set monthly goals to keep me on track along the way, which were so critical as well. And so when I launched my podcast, I had that clear path ahead of me about what it would look like to achieve my end goal of still having a 7-day-a-week podcast with 100,000 listens per month at the end of that 1 year. Now that's grown into EO Fire, which has 1,165 straight interviews without a break, with 1.2 million listens per month. So I've obviously since, massively broken through that goal that I had the first year here in year 3. And that's really exciting. So that's an example of me setting a SMART goal and accomplishing it within that time frame that I gave myself.
One of the things that I think people struggle with, and maybe you can comment on this. So you had this number in your head, 100,000 listens, and you sort of knew what you were going to do. You were going to interview people. By the way, true confession, we knew each other back then because we were both around Cliff Ravenscraft, and I remember thinking, as a guy who works
four
part
kids
time
and a job, yeah,
it's like okay, this goal of producing content every day, 365 days a year, John won't be able to sustain that.
Right.
That was where I was with my head. So apologies.
You're in the vast majority, Mark. Vast.
I underestimated you, John. That will never happen ever again. I don't make mistakes twice, and I will never underestimate you again. I guarantee you that.
Only once, shame on you.
Yeah, I tell you what. So anyway, so you kind of had a plan, but what you didn't really know how to get to 100,000. And I think a lot of people are in this spot where they know kind of what they want, maybe even how to measure it, getting back to the SMART thing, but they don't really have any idea how to get from 100 listens to 100,000 or $100 to 100,000 or 100 sales to 100,000. What do you do when you don't know how to get there?
There's a quote that I always went back to and still do to this day when I try new things. I mean, this Freedom Journal for me was completely brand new. I had never published a physical leather-bound journal before. I had no idea what I was doing, but I went back to, how I first started EO Fire and this quote that has always resonated with me. If you want to be, do. I wanted to be a podcaster, Mark, so I had to flip in podcast. There was no left or right to it. I just had to do that thing. And I did not do it well at first or for a decent amount of time afterwards, but I kept doing that thing, podcasting, so I could eventually become a podcaster. It didn't happen overnight. Michael Jordan didn't make his first free throw. Tiger Woods didn't make his first putt. I mean, these things happen over time. You become that thing that you repeatedly do. And there's another quote that is just that, we are what we repeatedly do. It's true. What is that thing? So what is it that you want to become? Do that thing. And guess what? Things come up. You start, I'm interviewing people. They're telling me these great stories. I'm having ideas and aha moments of ways to monetize my podcast. And I try them and some flop and some work and some work really well. And I amplify those that work really well. And before you know it, I have a 5-figure business per month. And then before you know it, I have a 6-figure business per month. And, not too long ago in May, actually, we had our first $500,000 month. And it all came from just saying, hey, I am going to be a podcaster, so I'm going to podcast.
So, fine. So $500,000 months. A lot of people, they're driving in their cars right now and they're going, okay, whatever. I mean, this guy, John, and I'm sure Kate tells you this all the time, but John, you are not normal. You're the edge case. Your people shouldn't expect to be like you. There's no way they can be that successful. John, nobody's going to be like you, man. What do you say to people, these, now 2,000 people or more in Podcasters Paradise who say, look, yeah, maybe that worked for you, but you're John, man. I'm not John Lee Dumas. I can't do this. What do you say to those people?
Yeah, well, now there's 2,700 members in Podcasters Paradise, all of whom are moving towards their goal of sharing their voice, message, mission with the world. And it's awesome to see. And for those people that are driving in the car that are thinking and saying, to themselves or maybe to their passenger, those exact words, Mark, that you just shared, I'd say this, hey, I was in your car 4 years ago today, driving to a job I did not like, listening to Gary Vaynerchuk and Tim Ferriss and Pat Flynn, talking about what they were accomplishing and what they were doing. And then talking about how other people are saying, they're an edge case, nobody could ever be like them. And thinking to myself, that's right. I could never be like them. I mean, I'm just this dude who, served his country, is kind of like this grunt soldier with no real refined skills. I just work hard and I kind of break things and try to fix them. And then, I launched, and then I just kind of kept doing that thing over and over again. That slight edge started working in my favor of doing a daily show and, tweeting and putting posts and updates and connecting with people that mattered and actually caring about those relationships, not just with my guests, but with my listeners as well. And then before I knew it, I'm being asked to speak at conferences and, failing badly at those conferences, like getting up and kind of stuttering and pacing around and giving some crappy talk and then getting off stage, leading up to now where just, 3 or 4 months ago, I'm keynoting Podcast Movement in Fort Worth, Texas, in front of 1,100 people, warming up the stage for Mark Maron of WTF. I mean, that has been my progress. And it hasn't been one that, has been replicated many times, but I was you 4 years ago thinking the exact same thing of like, Tim Ferriss is an anomaly. Gary Vaynerchuk is an anomaly. Yeah, they are anomalies. Look, can't say that word. But the reality is that they did that thing. They took action at one point. I've heard Tim's story when back in 2007, when he couldn't get anybody to read a 4-hour work week, let alone publish it. They laughed him out of buildings. They thought he was a joke, some little punk. And look at him now. So, I mean, we've all started wherever you are right now in the car. And many of us have started even lower than that. I know that I did. And it's just doing that thing.
Yeah, as punks go, Tim Ferriss is a pretty cool punk. That's one of those books I will never, ever, ever forget reading. It's just like, oh, wow. I get it, right?
And 60 publishers read that book and laughed at him.
Yeah, that's really amazing. So you talked about, you're just a grunt. So what about that? What is it? What was it? Did anything carry forward from that time in the military that you still look at today, behaviors or lessons learned or things that made you successful in the military that you are able to use today in the running of your business day to day?
The biggest lesson I learned from being an officer in the U.S. Army, and specifically within logistics for my final 2 years, is Parkinson's law. And that is that tasks will expand to the time that you allot them. And I got into entrepreneurship and I was like, do people not know this? Like, I'm seeing people like saying, yeah, I'm going to like build a website, sometime this month. And then like the end of the month would come. And Mark, you were in, masterminds as well. And you saw just people would set these kind of loose, claims and then they would never become a reality. Whereas I would always say, I'm going to interview 4 people tomorrow for EO Fire. And guess what? It wasn't easy and I wasn't necessarily fun because I wasn't good. But I interviewed 4 people the next day. And by the end of that day, my 4 interviews were done. I mean, Mark, you are number 2 because we just did you on EO Fire for my first chat. You're my second chat today. I have 7 more interviews lined up today. And a lot of people are like, John, that's crazy. And I'm like, is it? Because like I'm standing in my shorts and tank top right now, overlooking the Pacific Ocean here in San Diego. And I'm going to have 7 more conversations with really cool entrepreneurs. And then I'm going to be done for the day around, 5:30. And I'm still going to be sitting in my studio in my home here in San Diego. Like, is that really tough? Because I remember what tough is. Like, I remember deploying to war. I remember getting up early and schlepping to some cubicle at John Hancock for 9 hours a day. I remember doing the same thing in New York City. I remember getting in commercial real estate and driving around fruitlessly all day looking to list one property that would have made me nothing, even if I was successful doing it. Like, I remember that. And now these conversations that I'm having with successful entrepreneurs, I mean, not only are they fun, but every one of them is worth $4,000 because that's how much my sponsorship revenue is for every single episode.
So I will tell you that Parkinson's law is alive and well in corporate America. That's something that I can speak to, man. I mean, and what you said is great. And so some of the advice that I give people who are starting out, and you and I talked about this in episode 1165 of EOF, I encourage people to do something every day, no matter what, right? Even if it's one little thing. And you mentioned a book. Maybe you could talk about a little bit about that book where you had picked up that same idea of how the little things add up over time.
So the book is called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, and it is just such a great book for entrepreneurs to read because so many of us say, man, like, what did I do today? I didn't have any huge wins. I didn't break any milestones. And that's okay sometimes. Like, if you understand the power of the slight edge, and that's doing the small things right every single day. Like for me, that's a 35-minute power walk every morning here in the San Diego Bay, and then ending with a 7-minute circuit workout. You know what? I'm not going to see massive results from that every day because it's not a killer workout. It's 45 minutes. Most of it's a walk. But in 6 months from now, I've really seen massive results from energy, from fitness, from leanness, from doing that small thing every day. Just like from my email that goes out every single morning. Mark, when your interview goes live on EO Fire, you're going to get an email that says, Mark, your interview on EO Fire is live. You rocked the mic, brother. Here are all the links to share with your audience. If you do so, I'd be honored. And they're just simple one-click shares that make it so easy for you, my past guests, to share with your audience. I share embed codes. So if you want to put, I was featured on EO Fire on your site, you can. And guess what? Some people do it, some people don't, but I give them the option every single day. And it's just automatic. It's the first thing that happens every single day. And that little thing is added up to where now EO Fire has over 1.2 million listens per month and growing. And those are the little things that you can implement into your lives that will grow into great successes down the road.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how incremental things add up. You look back and, if you're able to do a little bit at a time, you look back and a year later, all of a sudden, wow, you've built all this stuff. And, maybe this one thing that you struggled with for 2 days a year ago, it's still paying dividends. And, I think that's a key thing, especially when you're working in the margins. So I have two questions for you, an easy one and a hard one. And then I want you to tell me what's next for EOF and then we're out. Okay. Cool. You ready for all that?
Let's rock.
Okay. First one, easy one. Did you ever actually get to drive a tank? I've always wanted to drive a tank. Did you get to drive one? I know you were you had some tank level stuff where you were you were a lieutenant in a tank unit or something?
I was the platoon leader of a platoon of tanks, which is 4 tanks and 16 men.
Okay. And did you get to, that means you had like an E5 driving the tank, right?
Yeah, you're good, Mark. I love this. And by the way, guys, just for like kind of a side reference, 4 tanks properly manned would take over 75% of the countries in this world because there's just nothing they could do. They couldn't stop 4 tanks, period. So it's a very powerful armament for a 23-year-old to be in charge of, which is me. And the answer is yes, absolutely. We spent 12 months at Fort Knox, Kentucky, training every facet of that tank. So I was the driver, I was the loader, I was the gunner, and I was the tank commander. Those are the 4 positions within a tank. So I learned how to do all 4 of those positions and very well. But then when it came to deploying to Iraq, I was just the tank commander. And that's the guy that you kind of see maybe in those older movies kind of propped up outside of the turret with the 50 cal right there, which is a massive machine gun. Commanding not just his tank, but the other 3 as well.
Right. And now, and I don't know how much you can talk about this, but my understanding is now, based on the stuff that's in the public domain, you actually have a display in the tank that shows you where the other tank is and sometimes maybe where the enemy tanks are. And it's
totally
it's very
It's
electronic,
a touch
right?
screen. So like when you start a mission where your tanks are, because it shows you like the infrared. So you just tap the infrareds and it just puts little green triangles on them. So it will follow them around. And then whenever an enemy is identified, you can touch them with a different, pointer, and that will put like a red X on them. So you know that that's the enemy. And it's fascinating. It's all really high tech stuff. But something that you'll probably find really cool, Mark. The accuracy of a tank is unbelievable when it comes to actually firing the sabot round, which is like the killing round.
Sure.
That's the one that will just like puncture like any kind of wall or material or anything. It's a really powerful round. So it will really accurately fire up to 2 miles. And so when you are aiming your tank up and you actually push like the little infrared button that shoots out the infrared on the target that you want to hit, you'll push that button and then you'll see the actual tank tube actually go doot, 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 because it's taking in wind, the actual humidity in the air, everything. So that when that actually fires, it will land like within a quarter of that actual target, infrared target, up to 2 miles away. And to say that like most enemies don't have a chance is like a massive understatement, because even like when the Iraqi tanks got close enough to ours, which like literally never happens, to fire, their shells would just bounce off our tanks. Like it's like playing, like prehistoric back in time games. Like it's just not fair.
It was unfair. Yeah. If I ever start a tank podcast, which is a real possibility now, you're going to be my first guest.
Oh my God. I love it. I love talking about it.
Okay. That was the easy question. Hard question now. If you really, if you were faced with one of my listeners on the street and they just asked you for your best advice about being successful, starting a business online, what's the one thing that you think everybody should know? The one thing that this is the thing that really can make the difference between success and failure. What would you tell them?
If you don't care, nobody's going to care. So actually sit down, take some time, And don't just like, say, oh, Mark's, doing the corn chiller thing. I'm going to try that. Like, no, like you don't care about corn chiller. He did that on a dare. Like, forget about it. Sit down and say, what am I actually excited about? Which is why it's really cool that you're thinking about starting a tank podcast, because you're obviously excited about that. And therefore you care. So what do you, Mr. or Mrs. Listener, care about? What excites you? What do you want to just know more about than the average person? And then just sit down and become the subject matter expert in that by going to lynda.com and watching all those incredibly awesome video tutorials, or any number of places. Become the expert and then start adding value to the world in that. Your business will appear before your eyes when you do things like that. And it's not going to be overnight, and it's not going to be, hundreds of thousands of dollars a month right away, but it could start with that first dollar in the door and then grow from there. And guess what? You'll be having a blast doing it. And that's really what matters.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Last question for you, sir, and then I'm going to let you enjoy that coastline view that you have there.
Yay.
Tell me and tell everybody what's going on with EOF next. I know you've got some projects. You alluded to one of them previously, but tell me what's next and exciting and coming from John Lee Dumas, JLD, the man, the fireman. What's coming?
So by far my biggest project and passion project in 2015 is the Freedom Journal. And we did allude to it because you asked that great question about the one thing that I've seen all of my past guests possess. And that commonality is the setting and accomplishing of goals. So I said, hey, there's enough apps in the world. There's enough, online PDFs and all this stuff. I have the ability, because, of the successful revenue and business model that I have, to create something physical and like really special that can help a ton of people in pretty much any industry. And that is the Freedom Journal. And so I set out in 2015 to create, what I consider the perfect journal that will teach people how to set a SMART goal. And we touched upon what that is: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time bound. And then even more importantly, I guide you in the accomplishment of that goal in 100 days. This is a beautiful leather. It's faux leather. It's very animal friendly. Faux leather, black journal, gold embossed, gold leafed. Like it's a work of art. Like if this is a video podcast, I'd hold it up right now. Like it is a gorgeous, gorgeous journal. And within it, the illustrations are killer, and it will guide you on your journey of setting and accomplishing your number one goal in 100 days, period. Whatever that goal is, you will accomplish it. And I'm so confident, Mark, like I'm actually putting a complete money back guarantee. Like if you don't accomplish your goal at the end of the 100 days, send me the book so I can study and see like why, you might have failed or why the book might have let you down, so I can improve it in the future. And you get your money back, period. Like it's that much of an awesome, like just goal-oriented book. It's my passion project. In January 4th, we are launching a killer crowdfunding campaign via Kickstarter. There's going to be a ton of great gift levels and rewards, and we love for people to check it out. And one of the reasons why we're using Kickstarter as a platform, and this kind of goes back to the conference that I just keynoted, which is called Thrive, Make Money Matter. This is not just another revenue source for EO Fire. We've partnered up with Pencils of Promise, which is an incredible organization out in New York City. And as we hit our funding goals, I'm going to be actually writing checks for $25,000 to build schools in third world countries directly out of the proceeds from the Freedom Journal. So it's just going to be an amazing journal for anybody that actually has it in their hands to accomplish a goal. And then number two, you're going to be really contributing to a phenomenal cause and building complete schools in third world countries. And Mark, I know you're friends with Pat. Pat just got back from Africa not too long ago to see his school that he built through his Pencils of Promise campaign. And it's just awesome. It's a feel good story. It's a reality, and it's something that I'm really passionate about.
Very good. So, have you got a sign up list or anything ready to go for the Pencils of, for the Kickstarter campaign, or we just wait to hear?
freedomjournal.com. Just visit thefreedomjournal.com.
I knew you would have that. And just to be clear, you said it's faux leather, but no foes were harmed in the making of the books, right? So there's no third world faux farm or something where like these foes are getting led to slaughter. It's all good, right?
It is all good. It is faux leather. Animals were spared across the board, and faux is like a French word for fake. So it's all good.
John Lee Dumas, you are the man. JLD, the fireman, the stud, the dude. You've done it. I'm really excited to have had you on the show. My listeners are going to want more John Lee Dumas. Where do they get it?
All the magic happens at eofire.com. And of course, I'd love to see you over at thefreedomjournal.com.
Dude, I'm totally in. You will see my Kickstarter contribution.
Yay.
I'm committed. And
well, hey, you will get a beautiful faux leather bound book delivered to your doorstep.
You know what, John, though, and I'm looking forward to that, but I'm not in for that reason. I'm in because I believe in what you're doing. I think it's going to help a lot of people. And if I can be a tiny part of that, I'm down, brother.
So I'm gonna have the high five mark level contribution of a pretty high number. So that'll be what you claim.
Okay, very good. Awesome. Very good. All right, dude, you have a great day. Thank you very much.
Mark, thank you.
Okay, that was an awesome interview with John Lee Dumas. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found at least one thing that you can take away from that. I encourage you to give John a shout out and let him know that you heard him on the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast. He will love that, and I will love it too. And thank him for being on, because it's a big deal to get John on the show. Give John a shout out. You can find all his contact information in the show notes at latenightim.com/092. Or you can just simply holler at him at John Lee Dumas. That's JohnLeeDumas on Twitter, and let him know you heard him on the show. That'd be awesome. Also, don't forget about the Michael Hyatt PDF at latenightim.com/Hyatt PDF. That's HYATT PDF. And that's really worth your time to download. Go check that out. I think you'll really enjoy it. Until next week, I hope you have a fantastic Thanksgiving or whatever it is that you do with this special Thursday of the year. And I'll see you next week. Ciao.
You can do it right when it's late at night.
You've been listening to the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast.
Be sure to visit latenightpodcast.com today to leave feedback for Mark. Download special bonus content, access the show notes, and more. See you there.
Until then, go and make some great progress on your internet business. One night at a time.
One night at a time.
Okay, so that was a super cool opportunity to interview John Lee Dumas. He's an awesome guy. And I tell you, it was really cool because we did back-to-back interviews. He only does interviews on Mondays, and he does a show every day of the week. And he does that by doing 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 interviews every Monday, and then they queue him up, and he's months ahead. So I had to wait months for my interview with him. I'm actually going to be on John's show on the 30th or 31st of December, I think. I'll be sure and let you guys know. And then we did back-to-back. He interviewed me, and I interviewed him. It was super, super fun. And John's an awesome guy, and I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I enjoyed interviewing John. If you ever get a chance to meet him in person, just walk right up to him and say, hey, I heard you on Mark's show and I just wanted to say hi. And he'll say hi. I mean, he's just a regular guy, really neat guy to be around. And like I said, I hope you enjoyed that. Ciao.
Late night internet marketing.
Hey, it's Mark again. I wanted to tell you one more time about this absolutely free resource that I have for helping people who are trying to get the big picture for internet marketing, actually get started and understand what all their choices are. If that's not you, there's no more content. You can skip to the end. But if you're someone who came to this podcast because you're searching for how to get started online and you just can't cut through all the noise, I get it. That was me. In 2007, when I was trying to get started, there were so many people throwing offers at me that I really couldn't even understand what all the different business models were. I couldn't understand how money moved around on the internet. And I couldn't really get a grip on what direction I wanted to go in so I could figure out how to move forward. I've created a free video resource for you just for that purpose at latenightim.com/explain. In several short videos, I just explained to you what internet marketing is all about and what online business is all about and the different options that you have for starting an online business. There's nothing to buy there. You just sign up for access and you get the videos just like that. So if that's interesting to you, or if you know someone who's in a same situation, send them that link, latenightim.com/explain. And let me know what you think. I'd love to hear what people are thinking that are in the exact same position that I was in more than a decade ago in 2007. In some ways, it seems like yesterday. And in some ways, it seems like an entire lifetime ago. Again, that's latenightim.com/explain.
Late night internet marketing.